The reason I kind of got involved with symmetry is, multiple reasons, but one of the biggest ones in particular, last December, my mom moved back to DC where she was born and raised to spend time with my grandmother. My grandmother's health was starting to fail. She was suffering from dementia and having health complications because, when someone has dementia, it's like their mind doesn't remind their body to do the simplest things like eating, for example. And my grandmother was literally just kind of withering away and moving closer and closer to her final days. So my mom wanted to be out there for to help manage her arrangements, but also spend that time with her before she would, lay to rest. But my grandmother, she was a wonderful woman and went to church a couple of days a week, Seventh-day Adventist. She actually was a retired government worker. She worked for the Department of Defense for like 20 years. And what happens as a government employee, my mom's also a government employee, so she has a very similar situation. But as a government employee, when you retire, they offer you like a life insurance type product that the most common one is you pay it up until about the age of 65, and then you have the option whether or not you want to keep paying on it to maintain the death benefit, or you can stop paying on it. But the death benefit becomes a decreasing term. So the older you get, the smaller the benefit is. And my grandma lived to about 85, 86. So her death benefit wasn't really that big. When she passed away in March of this year, her policy was worth about $7,200. And after the mortuary took their payment for preparing her body and getting her ready, the payout to the beneficiary, my grandma's beneficiary was actually my mom's sister, my Aunt Thomasine, and my Aunt Thomasine received about $1,200 from that policy as the beneficiary, even though my mom was there to take care of things. She wasn't, on that paperwork on her insurance report. So, so like my mom is one of nine, or my two uncles aren't doing too well right now. They're kind of laid up, looking at their final days as well. But my mom took on the responsibility of the the funeral home and the burial plot and all those things. So the cost of that was definitely more than $1,200, and it was actually about $5,000. And out of everyone, out of all the brothers and sisters, no one could really help her out or could afford to chip in. Everyone's kind of living paycheck to paycheck, and no one can really kind of help my mom out in putting my grandmother to rest. So my mom actually went into debt over this $5,000, and she asked my Aunt Thomasine, again the beneficiary, for a few dollars just to bury my mom and have everything kind of go smoothly, while they're grieving. And what do you think my Aunt Thomasine's response was?
I don't know.
Well, she said yes. She'd send her some money, but kind of hemmed and hawed with it for the next week, and didn't really send anything. Kind of said, "Hey, I need this money, right now," and didn't send anything to like I said, lay her own mother to rest. So right now, my mom and my Aunt Thomasine are not even on speaking terms,
Right.
and my family is kind of divided. And for me, if I can, like I said, I have two uncles that are almost laying to rest themselves. So if I can begin the process of kind of eliminating these quarrels in my family, and kind of protect families of my own, or families here in this community, that'd give me pride in making a difference. And again, kind of stopping that cycle within my own family. And if my grandma had just a little bit more coverage, we could kind of prevent this from even happening. So I'd like to see if I can help out some families and get them just a little bit more coverage, than they may already have, just to make sure that these kind of things are happening to them as well.
Cool.
But let me ask you, Miranda, what would it mean for you,
So,
or why are you looking into this type of protection, and what would it mean for you and your family?
so that's a very intricate story. I like it. I think
Hmm.
that what would help with the presentation is, you remember how yesterday we were talking about like interaction? My one of the things that really drew me in is when you asked me a question. So what do you think that they did?
Hmm.
I think if the more of that you can do, Marvin, you go from being just kind of like I don't know the right word, but just kind of being
A
like
talking head.
not a talking head, but you go from being just someone that's talking to an effective presenter at that point.
Hmm.
Does that make sense?
Hmm. Absolutely.
Don, I don't know, chime in here just kind of as an audience, but I think
Yeah.
that really it's very powerful the way that you do it, because you're talking and then you're pausing,
Hmm.
giving us a chance to catch up with you. Your pace is
Hmm.
perfect. You don't talk too fast like I do. But
Hmm.
that's very, very, it's very prominent, and it's going to be a big difference.
Got it.
Gotcha.
Sorry, Don, I didn't mean to cut you off. What were you going to say there?
Nope, I'm just listening. Thank you.
Yeah, no, but just as like an audience, I think the feedback is good because you're hearing this for the first time too. So
Yeah. What do you think, Don?
You know, it was a very interesting, sincere story you were telling.
Hmm.
But like Miranda said, if there would have been a pause or two in there to kind of get who was listening to become part of the story with you by asking
Hmm.
a question, or wouldn't that have been, that was bad, or something just to kind of get them to identify a little bit with along the way,
Hmm.
would draw them in more.
yeah, absolutely. I find that especially for me, because I do a lot of these calls, sometimes I just got to figure out, am I making like, first of all, am I talking too much? Are these guys even, are they even paying attention? Am I making sense here? And just me kind of pausing and just making sure that the audience is caught up is good. And it's not only good for them, but it's good for me too, to make sure that I'm just not talking to myself. You
Hmm.
know? But that was good. That was good. So just kind of keep working on it. What I would do, Marvin, is you just like on the phone scripts, is record it, play it back. Be your own worst, boss and your best employee. Just keep practicing it, because there's so much emotion and so many details in there that I think if you present it the right way, that'll be your presentation, just your story.
Gotcha.
Cool. All right. So let's move right along here. So Marvin, let's have you jump in here. Um, now let's pretend you're working with. I think Bruce is on. Hey, Bruce.
Yes, I'm on.
Hey, glad that you. We
I
had.
was listening to the story too.
Oh, what are you? What's your thought? What are you going to share at this point?
Well, I just a comment on Marvin. I thought it was really a great story that was emotionally drew people. It's just the difference between telling a story and sharing a story.
That's good.
And I think when you share, you get everybody involved versus just telling them. But I haven't had time to do my homework today. I was busy working on a real estate deal all day, and I just walked in the door 3 minutes ago or 4 minutes ago.
Are you going to close it or what?
I did. That's why I had to work on it all day
I guess
to close it to get it done today.
if you close the deal, I guess that might be allowed. What do you guys think?
I closed the deal.
That's okay.
So now I got money to run with the insurance for the next month. So.
Oh yeah.
All right, man. We'll let you slide this time. So.
Okay. I just haven't had the time because of the last couple of days have been crazy hectic. So.
Gotcha. Well, do you think, just kind of offhand, that there's something that's kind of personal that you could share, or do you think you might borrow Ryan's story, or what are kind of your thoughts?
Well, I like Ryan's story. I'd probably borrow Ryan's story. I think it's a good story, and you can, just like you talked about yesterday, and I've heard it enough. It's about painting the picture, and the better of an artist you are at painting the picture, the more real and alive it becomes to people. And I think that's the difference between explaining something being too abrupt and abbreviated in terms versus painting that picture so that people really are drawn into it.
Okay, so let's kind of work on that. I guess maybe we'll do it offline here before you head out to your first appointment, just to make sure that we're presenting it in a way that you're comfortable with, that it's really going to connect with people. But guys, again, as we talked about yesterday, if you just do this, this is your in-home presentation. John Ziller, who I'm sure you've heard on the conference calls and at conference and such, he's so good at doing sales that he doesn't do any of this other stuff preemptively, because he just walks in and says, all right, Bruce, guess what? Let me tell you why I do this. And he goes right for the jugular right away. That he just jumps over all of that stuff. And he just sits down and said, guess what? My dad, when I was really young, got cancer, and he died. And like, he just starts talking about this with no prepare the mind, nothing. And I think it's awesome. I've seen him do it, but I don't, in my opinion, I don't know how transferable it is unless you can have him train you on it, like exactly how he does it and why and all the nooks and crannies of everything. Because I think if I did that, or some people that I've trained that have no experience in sales or insurance, they'd probably get booted out after about 5 minutes, you know. But he wrote over $500,000 doing that off his first year with the company. So it just, if anything, it really helped me to realize how important this part of the presentation was, because I kind of glazed over it in the start. I went through, but after I started teaming up with him on training, I was like, I am leaving so much on the table as far as painting this picture. I wish I had these tools when I was in the field, because like you guys really have a comprehensive sales process to go into the field and kind of hit all this stuff before they have a chance to even say it. Did you guys have a chance to go through that call that he did?
Yep, you sure did.
Smooth as butter.
I could tell, Don, in your description of your why, that you had laced some of that stuff in there. What did you kind of get from that call that was really impactful?
Well, you know, it's just so helpful just to continue to watch things a couple of times, and the people that are good at it and heartfelt and sincere. If you're paying attention and conscious in the moment and watching, you know, you can kind of pick up what's important, and you know, and telling us a story, and then, you know, checking in with the people that you're you know, telling your story to. So they can get involved and share their emotion similarly as you move along through it.
And Marv, what did you get from the training call?
Just, it was, for me, I'm so impressed by his delivery. He's such a smooth talker.
Smooth operator, man.
It's so ridiculous. Yeah, it's so ridiculous.
I know. But as far as the mechanical side, oh, I'm sorry.
It's heartfelt. It's very genuine, very sincere, very heartfelt, and you know, you can't fake that. You know, he delivers.
So one of the things that I really love that he does that I wasn't very good at was he's so good at, and Don, in your video, in your presentation, he goes 7 layers deep on what would it look like. So I'm going to give you an example. Let's pretend that I have an aunt who took care of her. She had $1 million of life insurance, and she passed away, and she had a family. Okay, we may think that that's not a good story because the family's protected. However, the way that he trained me on this, he goes, let's paint the picture of what it would have looked like without the coverage.
Exactly.
So by saying, you know, I'm so glad that my aunt had this policy because it prevented the family from having to move out of their house and rip the kids out of school and move into a new neighborhood and do this and do that and put a for sale and this. And so he's just kind of like taking it from another angle, but still hitting on the emotions. And I never thought to do that. I never thought I would say, okay, cool, Don, you're, you know, I see that there's, you know, you're upset about this and this is how this could help you. But I never really dug in on that part of it. And I'll tell you the difference between him and me when I was in the field. I had to sit with about 3 times as many people as him. I would still rival every week. He'd only have to sit. He only ran maybe, I don't know, 10 appointments, 8 to 10 appointments a week. but he would just help a lot of them, and they were these huge premiums. So he'd come in with 4 or 5 apps and write like 15, 20 grand a week, and I would need about 15. So, and I can see now that I've learned this from him since we both got out of the field, that he was just better at grabbing the emotions by the why than I was. And people are a lot more, what I was trained is if there's no pain, this is just another bill. And he was better at digging in there and painting the picture of what it looks like if something bad happens, preventatively up front and preemptively up front. And then down here, I think I was kind of better at pulling the details out of the clients just because I had a system for it. So if you take what he's teaching you on that phone call, piggybacked with the way that I pull out the information, you guys, it's a game here. And I can guarantee you the other agents that these guys are meeting with do not have this figured out like this. There's no way, you know? Right? So that's what excites me, that we're going to be able to connect with people differently and explain things in a way that's going to be totally different than anyone else they've met with. So I hope you can borrow my confidence in that as you're making your phone calls, when they say, hey, I've met with other people, I don't want this. Where you can say, wait a minute, this is going to be different. You haven't met with me, you know? But, I'll be in your area. Let's spend 15 minutes and see if you have a good match here. And if not, then that's cool. I have other people to meet with anyways. Does that make sense?
Sure does.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Yeah. So let's do this. Marv, I want you to Dawn, you can make up a fictitious story. Let's use Bruce, because we haven't interacted him yet. Marvin, let's have you talk to Bruce, and Bruce, you can make up a situation if you want. But I want you to ask Bruce these questions. I want you to cover these 2 boxes, okay? Number 1, I want you to figure out what it looks like now if something happens, and what it looks like. What does he want? And I guess it should be boxes, not circles. What does he want to have happen? Okay, so for example, and I'll kind of use Dawn here. Dawn, listen, God forbid if Mary were to get in let's say she's a realtor, and let's say she's driving around and gets in a car accident and doesn't make it home tomorrow. What kind of situation would that leave you in?
Well, probably a pretty tough situation. She's been, half the breadwinner, if not more, the last 10 years.
So like, how would that impact her?
We'd probably have to sell the house, give up one of the cars. Maybe the vacation home would have to get sold. Still got 2 kids in college. It's going to affect a lot of things. I don't think we've really looked at it that hard.
So, and I can go a whole bunch. You gave me a lot to work with here. So how would it make everyone feel to do that, to have to make those adjustments?
It'd be horrible. It'd be disruptive to everyone's, current activities. They'd have to make some changes, and there's barely enough time in the day to do everything that we need to now.
So I know you said the kids have to finish school. Like, if God forbid she wasn't in the picture, would that still be able to happen, or would that be a hardship? What would that kind of look like?
That'd be a hardship. They might have to, go back to work, and maybe that would double the amount of time necessary to get through college. That'd be a messy situation.
So I'm going to pause for a second. Right now, I'm not talking about his home specifically. I just want to see what this picture looks like just in general, right? So in the meantime, I want to find out what's the scoop on the house, because that's what we're here to do. But really, I want Don to feel like the impact now, so he doesn't have to feel the impact if something bad happens, because he's already thought it through properly. Because if I don't sit here and have this very uncomfortable conversation with him, when is the first time he's actually going to think through this stuff?
When it happens.
Right. And have any of you gone through anything super dramatic or tragic in your life before? Like a loss of a loved one, maybe a divorce, maybe something like just something really that was just kind of totally took your life and like shook it upside down. Has that ever happened to anyone?
Yeah.
A couple of times.
How clear are you thinking in those moments when that happens versus like if right now, if we're just talking about versus when that happens?
Not
Yeah,
very
it's
clear.
very confusing. Yeah.
So I kind of took that as I get maybe with what I was going through when I first started with symmetry, and I was kind of going through that myself. My goal was to make sure that I could paint a good enough picture now so that if that time comes, they at least have a thought through plan and at least they can check that off their mental list. Listen, the house is taken care of. Either let's say the whole thing's paid off, half of it, or they know exactly that they have a year or two or three to figure things out and what's included. And I'll never forget my very first death claim. Okay, it was a lady who I called on the phone, and she said that she already had mortgage protection, and her husband was in chemotherapy. Her mortgage was 250,000, and she said that she already had a plan for $65 a month that covered both of them. And I was like, wow, are you sure it covers if you die like with natural causes? Oh yeah, it's a full mortgage protection plan. And I said, and I've been doing it a little while, so I knew that didn't make sense. I said, listen, if that's the case, maybe I need to get contracted with that carrier because I've never heard of a plan that good. So if I'm going to be out there anyways, do you mind if I come by here and Donna and just see your policy and just make sure it's the right thing? And if it is what you want, I'll say keep it, and if not, I'll take good care of you. It turned out it was an accidental death policy. This
Only.
man had a big knot on his head the size of a golf ball. He was going through chemotherapy as we speak with cancer, and he could barely sit at the table while I'm sitting there doing this. And she finds out that she has no life insurance and it's an accidental death policy. It took us 2 hours to call them. There's nothing in their policy that said accidental death. There's just an AD. And after 3 hours, the lady, like, they were so shocked. And I actually got him a better deal on the accidental death and then got him a graded death benefit policy and her a mortgage protection policy. But he died about 6 months in later. And this lady, I was actually in Canada on vacation with my family in the mountains, and I didn't have cell phone service. And I ended up finally calling her back like 3 days later. I'm like, I am so sorry. And she goes, no, it's okay, Miranda. I know exactly what we had. I know that it was a graded policy. I know I'm going to get my money back and blah, blah, blah. And she knew exactly, she was so calm and she was so appreciative of the fact that she knew what they had 110% because I spent the time and did that. And she's like, hey, you want to come over for breakfast? Like in a few weeks. I'm like, okay. Like she was just, could you imagine if you lost your loved one and you thought you're getting like 250,000 and you don't get any of that? I actually wrote a story on LinkedIn after. I was like, this is crazy that this happened. And what it could have looked like if I didn't take the time to go over there and chat with these people. So, so I looked at at least when you're going through this of how important it is to kind of, and they didn't either one of them passed away. Neither one of them wanted to stay in this house. They were going to sell it anyways, pull the equity out and move. So they didn't need me to go do some big long policy that was going to cover like 200 grand anyway. They needed a year to put it on the market and sell it. So, but now that I kind of understand what it looks like with Dawn somewhat, I can wrap back around and I say, so what would happen with the home? What does that look like? If your wife wasn't here, what would you guys want to do? Or what would it look like right now if she wasn't in the picture? Could you stay there, or tell me what that kind of looks like?
It'd be a hardship to have to make all that mortgage myself because I just haven't planned and set things up that way.
Okay. So if you, let's say, and I'm just using fictitious things, but let's say you're not here, would they have to move out of the home, or what would that look like right now?
Yeah, absolutely. Or marry a sugar daddy.
Or she'd have to find someone real quick. And how long they could kind of stay put in here with the resources and everything that's in place before they'd have to make some adjustments?
3 to 6 months.
So do you guys think that I have do I know exactly kind of do I think there's an issue? Not an issue, but is there room for me to help him? And do you think he thinks that there's room for me to help him right now? Are we able to check?
You're pretty warm.
Okay.
You can go a little deeper, I think. But you're definitely warm. I think it's in the mind where it's like, okay, there's not a plan and we need a plan,
So where would you go next? So we figured out there's 3 to 6 months of assets that would help them stay in the home. where would you go next after that? And you're right. We can keep going around and around and around. And I know Michael Mascola, he'll do this for 15 minutes, but where would you go after this?
I'm more curious to know like what actually happened to, we're talking about his wife passing and him taking over all the bills and stuff, and it's like how do you manage it? Like I think it's one of the questions there. How do you make it work? How do you make your home more affordable?
Like if
How
you
do you stay in the home?
yeah, you could actually go back up here to their bills and say, "Look, so listen, Don, if it was just you, which one of these bills do you think we could kind of cut out if it's just one person? Maybe that would help make it more affordable or more feasible." And I hand him a pen and have him start crossing stuff off, right? And maybe now the monthly expenses are now $3,000 a month. And I know we're going back and forth here, but let's say Mary's got 3,000. Now we're a little closer, aren't we? There's no spending money yet. At least we're not as upside down as we started with. How real is it now when we start crossing stuff off?
It's getting real.
Really real. Yeah.
So that was good. And so after you can legitimately check off the box of what would happen today, and don't shortcut it. If Marvin, if you think you're lukewarm, stay there. Because the last thing, if there's going to be I need to think about it, it's going to be probably because the why wasn't there. Maybe you thought it was, they didn't think it was, or you're showing them something that's cost too much. Those are the only two reasons. So let's pretend that box is, and you guys, again, I can have this on screen and go through these questions with people. I actually wrote down some that I started with that were really important, like who would want to stay in the home? You know, would you want to stay there? Where would you move? How would this impact your financial lifestyle? Who would take over the home? Who would pay for the medical bills, final expenses? Like you can keep going with that onion, keep peeling it back. But once you've got that checked off, now we can say, so what, Don, what would you want to have happen? So let's say we had a policy in place and everything was covered, like in a perfect world, what would that look like for you guys?
Well, in a perfect world, it'd be nice to have the mortgage paid off, but you know, our mortgage is probably too high for that to be affordable. But if I could get the family at least a year or two of payments covered, so they could get through their mourning period. But if it was me that passed, that might not take that long. But I'd want at least 2 years of coverage for them, so they'd have time to do something. They wouldn't have to rush into anything, and I think that would be the minimum.
So how would that help them, having that time?
Well, they wouldn't have to, drop out of college. They wouldn't have to, go back to work right away. They wouldn't have to get desperate and look for another relationship because they needed someone to help with half the bills.
You're going to add that in, I can tell. That's a good, yeah, that's good. Okay. Cool. So, sometimes, guys, I'll find that the people are going to move anyways. And if they are, that's screaming that they only need a year or two to figure stuff out.
Okay.
Okay. If someone says that, sure, we can go and buy a super expensive policy that's going to cover the whole mortgage. But if you're just getting it to make sure you can move and sell the home, I probably wouldn't even go there because it's going to be way easier and cheaper to just do that. And unless you are living in a town that has a lot of young, healthy people, I could only show that about 20% of the time, having the whole mortgage paid off or less. You guys, do you guys live in a demographics that's predominantly older people, or is it pretty mixed that you know of?
It's mixed.
Okay. Well, in Florida, like in Fort Myers, it's like probably one of the retirement capitals of the United States. So my normal age group is like high 60s to 85-ish, typically. The retired folks, typically. So if they're over 60, you're probably not. You can look at term, but typically if it's under 60 or 65 and under, typically I'm more like, it's going to probably be a little bit out of the price range in most cases. Unless we do a medical exam and they're real healthy, then it would be fine. But so I really, knowing, let's say I'm sitting with someone who's in their 70s or early 70s, I'm kind of trying to figure out at this point, if I give them a couple years to figure stuff out, is that going to be better than the situation they're in now? How would they use that time without me being too blunt about it? like, I know you really want to stay in the home, Marv, but let's say that wasn't feasible. Like, do you think you could get a roommate? Could you get more hours at work to kind of make things work, or maybe eliminate some bills? And I'm going to keep brainstorming with him some ideas that are kind of a short-term recommendation. And what I find is most people, if you have some, they can figure out how to be resourceful. But the initial shock of having a loss of a loved one and trying to be resourceful is what we were trying to avoid, or a thought through plan at least. So, does that make sense?
Sure does.
Cool. So let's do this. Let's have Marv talk to Bruce real quick. And Bruce, you can make up a story if you want. To go through the sequence of these questions here. So we'll pretend like you've done your why and you've got him kind of, sitting on edge here, and now you're trying to figure out what it looks like for him if something happens. So we'll go through box number 1 first. What would happen now? And then we'll move over to what would he want. So as soon as you feel that this box is checked off, and you can move over to what he wants to have happen.
Okay, Bruce. God forbid, you were to leave today and not come back home. How would that affect, your kids, your family, and what does that picture kind of look like?
Well, it definitely wouldn't be good for the future. So I'm not sure. I haven't thought about it that much.
Okay, but like who would be responsible for the house? Like, I'm not sure. You have a spouse, right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And is she like a breadwinner as well? Does she take care of some of the bills?
She works in a dentist office.
Okay.
Just doing secretarial work, so she doesn't make that much money.
Mm-hmm. So what do you think would happen? Would she want to stay in the home, or would she have to move, or?
Well, I'm sure she'd want to stay in the home. I don't think she wants to move. I think that's the last thing she'd want to do is have to move. But I don't know, what she'd have to do to try and stay in the home. Whether
Mm-hmm.
she'd have to get some of the kids to come back and help her, or
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I haven't really thought about that.
What about other like friends and family? How do you think they would be affected?
Well, we've got a bunch of kids, and it'd probably fall back on the kids that they'd feel like they had to help her or take care of her.
Would that kind of slow down some of their plans, that they're kind of working on right now for themselves and their lives?
Oh, I'm sure it would. I'm sure it would affect. I don't think a lot of them are just barely making it, so it would definitely put a burden on them too.
Mm-hmm. And
what?
I mean, if you don't quite know, I guess how she would afford the home, and you would think she'd have to lean on some family, but would want to stay there. What kind of adjustments do you think could be made in order for her to do that?
To stay in the home,
Mm-hmm.
she'd either have to work more or get a second job, or get somebody as a renter, or figure out how to cut any other expenses she had.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
Is there anywhere else for her to? Is there anywhere else for her to go? Is there anything else for her to do? Is there another option?
Not really. That wouldn't be that wouldn't devastate her.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it would definitely be difficult for her, and so I know that I probably need to do something that would. But I've just thought all along that I really couldn't. I really wasn't in a position to do anything. So I guess that's why I just ignored it and tried to avoid thinking about it.
Well, what would you want to kind of happen? If God forbid, like say you didn't come home, what would be the perfect, I guess, scenario for your wife?
I just figured at this point, I mean, I'd like her to be taken care of, but I figured at this point I'm too old to get any insurance or pass any medical stuff or do anything like that. So I just figured that wasn't even worth looking at.
Mm-hmm. So you're saying that if there was something affordable, you'd kind of want to have something in place that would protect her in your home, so that way she could stay in the house and not necessarily have to worry about grieving over you, as well as finding that second job, finding the resources to maintain her lifestyle. Yeah,
I think if there was an option, I'd definitely be open to it, because I think that's the worry, is that I didn't think there was any options there.
Okay. And I want to say I'm kind of done there, but
okay. So Bruce, and as his client, do you feel like what would happen now and what would you want? Are those boxes checked off in your mind?
I think they're close, and I think if I was Marvin, I'd say, well, that's why I'm a professional, and that's why I do this, to try and figure out how I can help people. I don't always have the way, but I think that's what I'm here for, and that's what you expressed interest in that card for. So why don't we sit down and let's go ahead and do an application and see if I can find a company that would work for you.
Well, we're going to do, that's exactly right. In a minute, we're going to provide a recommendation.
Right.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Right now, all we're trying to do is before we make a recommendation, just make sure that there's a why there, because without a why,
right.
it doesn't matter if it's $500 or $5 or $0 probably, but just kind of in your feelings, did you feel like that there was a purpose to do it? Did you feel like he kind of hit on some heartstrings there with you?
Oh yeah, and especially as it got on, it made me realize that I hadn't done anything, and it would, there weren't really any options. So I was close.
What else could he have asked you that would have maybe painted that picture a little bit more clear, just kind of as the client?
I think we talk sometimes about digging deeper, and how long have you and your wife lived in that house? And I mean, does she feel like that's her home, and that there's things that she loves about that house that she'd hate to leave and have to give up? And
nice. Write those down, guys. Those are really good questions.
I did like that. How long have you lived in the house?
And what was this part, Bruce, that you said? Does she have things about that home that she's really passionate?
Yeah. Did you have things about that home that you really loved? And I mean, tell me. I mean, and what have you guys done to this house? And he could say, well, my wife, remodeled the whole bedroom and put up a barn door, and that's her favorite thing, is the barn door in that house. She always wanted a barn door, and we ended up putting in French doors a couple of years ago, and and got rid of some Arcadia doors, and she loves this house, So trying to get to those point where you could get some of those things out. Yeah.
That's cool. I like it. Good.
Then it would get more emotional for her and for him.
Yeah, and I would hit on one and then I'd move to the other. So okay, so let's talk about you now, and make sure, because both people might have a totally different idea. So Marv, you might want to stay in the home. No, your wife might never want to leave this place no matter what happens, but you might be like, I'm out of here tomorrow. And there's no wrong option. It's whatever they want is fine. You just might make a different recommendation based on their age and their health and what they want. Sound good?
And it's just like me talking about my kids. Say, if I was in Marv's position, I might say, well, tell me, how many kids do you have? And do you have any grandkids? And, do they come over and visit you? And, Oh yeah, there's nothing more me and my wife love than the grandkids, and we have Sunday dinner for them every Sunday night, and that's probably the highlight of our week is when all the family and grandkids come for Sunday dinner. And do you think your wife would miss that?
Mm.
You know, and that would be, oh yeah, my wife would. That's one of the big things. It would devastate her. So.
Miranda, just a quick technical question.
Yeah.
So on a policy where you've got an older couple, is the application going to include both of them, or would there be separate applications on each one?
That's a great question. Typically, the only time you're normally going to add on a spouse is with like a policy like this is through work as like a rider. So what we recommend is having one for each, because what you'll find is they're going to both qualify for a different set of policies. And
Right.
let's say that I'm on my husband's on mine, right? And I pass away tomorrow. He's a rider on my policy. So what happens to his policy if he's on my policy and I'm not here anymore?
It expires, I guess.
I would assume, yeah, like, it's my policy, you were a part of it. So if I've done it, it's been like on an accidental death policy, and I'm not trying to like put any, like prejudge anyone, but normally I'll put the one that's younger as the primary and the one that's older as the add-on, but I rarely do it. You might save like $5 a month by adding them together on something like that, and typically I don't think it's worth it if one of them passes away and another one doesn't have a policy anymore.
Yeah, I would agree.
So do you usually try and get a policy on each one of them, or are you just satisfied to get a policy on one?
Me, if they're under 70, I normally write two on each person. So I'll write the husband an accidental death policy and the spouse an accidental death policy. So, but if push came to shove and their income was really like you're having to make a tough decision, I'm going to protect the one that's most important in the setup. So, but most of the time they do want to protect each other equally, and I end up walking out of a home with 4 applications. And I'll show you how.
So I missed you. You kind of cut out on that. A mortgage application and a what? And an accidental death. Is that what you said?
You guys all have your health license on the line?
I do.
Yes.
We all do. Okay. So if these folks are under the age of 71, okay, so if they're 70 or younger, you can always bundle up to $500,000 of accidental death coverage. So if you're not able to cover their full mortgage payment with a normal life insurance policy, you guys have access to an accidental death policy that's very economical, and it's a very good product that will cover the rest of their mortgage on a separate policy.
Who's that with?
That's with Mutual of Omaha on the Guaranteed Advantage, and you can actually quote that rate from your cell phone.
Okay.
Yeah. So because you have your health license, you can write that, but if you didn't have your health, you wouldn't have access to that product. And it absolutely was a game changer. So I'm going to show you guys how to bundle that in a minute. And no one shows this stuff to people with it bundled in, and how we're going to go over this in a second. But it's a game changer.
And what type was that again with Mutual?
It's called the Guaranteed Advantage Accidental Death Policy. And when you guys go to print your applications out, you're not going to find that one. So, Dawn, I can get Brian or one of my guys out there to send that to you, because it's not on Symmetry's website. This is how elusive this is. No, it's not even on Symmetry's website. It is a policy of Omaha, but we just can't print it off from our normal resources. We have to go to Mutual of Omaha to get it. So
they did have it at the convention. They had a brochure out there at the convention on it.
Yeah, and it's it's the most transparent accidental death policy I've ever seen. Most accidental deaths, you have to die within 3 months or 2 months. This one, you have 365 days to die after the accident. There's only like 7 or 8, like wow. It's like no, you can't die while you're drinking and driving, or you can't like commit suicide, or like it's very like normal stuff. It's not like you have to be standing on one foot and get struck by lightning wearing a blue T-shirt or anything. Like it's very, transparent, and it's backed by one of the most known companies out there. Like it's just, I feel really good about writing it for someone. And some of these other ones, when you actually dig into the fine print, it's going to be pretty tough for someone to be able to cash in on those, you know? So, but yeah, that's my recommendation for sure. And if they're young and under, I don't know how young, but you'll see when you might actually qualify to get all their money back at the end with a return of premium as well. So, all right, but I don't want to get too confusing, but off track, but I'm glad we covered that. So now that I've got both the boxes checked off, now I want to move over to an explanation on just what mortgage protection, the options are, okay? And before you guys hit the home, I want you to log into Virtual Mentor, and you're going to know exactly kind of what to look at after we're done today. So you're going to kind of know, based on what your research, if they can qualify for the whole mortgage, half of it, or maybe a couple years of mortgage payments. So what I tell you guys to kind of use as your threshold or your kind of thermometer is 10% of their mortgage payment. So if they're paying $1,000 a month for their mortgage payment, how much should their policy be for this approximately?
100.
100, right? So if they're spending $2,000 a month, we can now up it, right? But just try to be around there, because sometimes the full let's say they're paying $2,000, no, let's say $1,000 a month. This might cost them $700 if they're older and there's a lot of stuff going on. Why in the world would we show someone a mortgage protection policy that's $700 when they're paying $1,000?
Right.
People do that all the time, though, and then you call behind them. And so sometimes, hey, if we cover half your mortgage, it's still $350, which is still embarrassing to show, because you know the odds of someone that's paying that to spend almost 40% of what they're paying, it doesn't make sense. But down here, 1 year of mortgage payments might be around $100 a month in this scenario. Now we're talking common sense, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So here's the deal. So if I cover 1 year of mortgage payments, and this may be $1,000. Sorry, let's say it's $1,000 a month for their mortgage payment. 1 year of mortgage payments would be how much?
$100.
So no, let's like
1,200.
12,000.
So there's no reason in the world for us to say, hey, guess what, Don? I'm going to sell you a $12,000 policy and it's going to cost you $100 a month. Although that's what it is, there's no reason for me to put that there. I'm going to say instead, I'm going to do 1 year of your mortgage payments for $100 a month. Okay?
Got it.
What it is, it's
Yeah.
what it does. And I'm telling you, I did this for like a couple of weeks. It didn't work well. So let's pretend like we know that the person's probably going to be around here because of their age and our research and stuff. That makes sense. And you could indeed end up doing one of these, but I'm just kind of going off of what I've seen. So I'm going to want to kind of deter them from wanting those coverages. So the terminology that I have in here is I'm kind of letting them know, guys, this top one, there's 3 ways that we can do mortgage protection. So let me explain this to you before I show you the prices that I worked up. The first one is the whole amount. And in your scenario, it's $100,000. I'm just going to use that figure because it's easy. This, Dawn, is the most expensive one to get. It's actually the hardest to qualify for too. And 95% of the time I can find a more affordable solution for my clients. Because I don't think it would make sense to show you something that's really close to what you're paying already per month for your mortgage payment, would it?
Nope.
Okay. But sometimes I'll do part of the home, which in this case, maybe it's $50,000, $30,000, I don't know, whatever the case may be. But in this scenario, sometimes if there's 2 people, a lot of the times that are contributing to the household, their bills are now like worked around 2 incomes. So if you eliminate one person, then that goes away. If we can just pay the mortgage down halfway, sometimes that makes the home more affordable for one person. Does that make sense?
It sure does.
Mm-hmm.
Also, maybe you're single, okay? Maybe like me, I'm single, so maybe my brother's taking my home over if I pass away. But he has his own home, his own family, his own kids. Now he's got my mortgage. Maybe it's helpful to him if I can pay it down halfway. Now it's half the bills for him. So that we do that too sometimes. But again, this is going to be the hardest ones to get, and they're going to be the most expensive. And this last one here is probably one of my most popular recommendations. So you see how I'm coloring the words to make them like this last one?
Sure.
Right.
People in a situation, and I'll insert what they just said. So you know, in this situation where the wife's probably going to move anyways, you know, she probably put the house on the market and moved back to where her family lives anyways. Whatever they said, I insert. But really, I call this equity protection or critical period because, quite frankly, I'm Don, or off you, Bruce. Bruce, if you passed away yesterday, do you think the bank's going to call your wife and say, "Listen, we know your husband just passed away, but you owe $100,000, and I'll be by tomorrow to pick up a check for 100 grand. If not, you're out of here." Do you think they're going to do that?
No.
I hope not, right?
Right.
But on the other hand, do you think that they would call your wife and say, "Listen, we really appreciate your business over the last, 20, 30 years. We're going to just go ahead and give you the next like year or two or three off of paying any mortgage payments. We're just going to cover that for you guys." Do you think they'd do that?
No.
No?
No.
But it'd be great if they did, right?
Oh yeah.
And shake your head.
Dreamer.
Shake your head, yes, and laugh like it's a joke. Oh my gosh, do you think they do that? No, but it'd be great if they did, right? Shake your head, yes, because once they agree to that, what did they just agree that they like?
A bare minimum policy.
Boom. And every time before when I was new and I didn't do it like that, I still had a question mark over my client's head when I was trying to explain this. But as soon as I started doing it just like that, it was like a game changer. And they're like, "Oh," and I'm like, "Yeah, it would be cool, right?" Yes. Now I know for sure, worst case scenario, they love this last one, and I've got a sale. Make sense?
Yep.
Sure does.
Mm-hmm.
So let's go through this. Bruce, why don't I have you just basically read what's on screen here, and we'll just pretend. And again, if these guys can qualify for these top two, you probably don't want to use as many words to deter them from wanting it. But I'm just kind of going off of the most complicated scenario, so to speak.
Okay. Well, Miranda, I'm going to give you an idea. There's about 3 different ways that we can look at mortgage protection, but the first is where we take and try and pay off the full amount of the mortgage, 100%. Now, to get you to qualify is probably the hardest thing, and it's the most expensive. And 95% of the time, I can find something more affordable for my clients. So let's go to number 2. Well, actually, I probably should have backed off and said, do you think this is something that you'd like?
No, don't ask, because right now you're leading me to a decision.
Okay.
So later at the end, after you planted all these seeds and like regurgitated some of the words that they said, you're going to now lead them to, if this is the one you want them to pick, you're going to do that by weaving in some words that they told you about the recommendation for this one.
Okay.
Do we want more specific details on how expensive that might be, or do it as brief as Bruce just did?
If you use the word expensive, sometimes people say just cross it off. I don't want the most expensive one.
Right. And then the second one would be where we take and pay off part of your mortgage. Example, if you had a mortgage of $50,000, we maybe pay off $30,000 or $50,000 of that. You eliminate one of the families. If a family has double income families, you eliminate one of the families having mortgage half down is helpful, or if a friend or family member is getting the house. So, but the third way, which I think is probably the best way, is where I'm sure the bank isn't going to call you and say, pay the entire mortgage off in the next 12 hours, right? After, if your wife was to pass away or your husband was to pass away, would they?
I hope.
No. Yeah. And on the other hand, they're going to call you and say, well, we really like you guys. We'll give you another 2 or 3 years to pay off your mortgage. So, Miranda, do you think they would do that? No. No, absolutely not. But it would be great if they would, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, so that was where it was.
So that's good. So guys, you can go and explain these options, because right now we're not talking about showing any prices yet. We're just right now kind of weave them into a recommendation that makes sense. And now when I'm going to really buckle down on this equity protection, because I want them to understand really how this bottom one works. So, and I try my best to give you guys as much plug and play as you can. So I'm like, listen, a lot of times the equity in the home is like a life insurance policy, and people don't even realize it. So I know your home, you only owe 100 grand, right? If you were to die like tomorrow, or you paid, or you sold the home tomorrow, what could you get for it? As far as like, how much would it go for? He's not. I think he's on mute. Okay, so let's say you're 100,000. So Don, if you sold your home, what could you get for it right now if it's $100,000?
We might be able to get 225 in today's market.
So in some aspect, if you were to sell the home tomorrow, you almost have like $125,000 life insurance policy. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it sure does.
And so the idea is, as this time goes by, this goes up and this goes down, and now maybe this goes up to 200. You know, and I just kind of draw this out in person for them so that maybe they don't have any life insurance or anything right now, or any meaningful coverage. But if they sell their home, they have 200 grand for their family.
Yep.
Right. So this now becomes people's most important asset. Oh my gosh, my food is like burning. Hold on a second. All right, buddy, come over here. So also, and I just read this off. I'm like, you know what? I also call this the critical period coverage because have you guys ever heard when a therapist will say don't do any major decisions after like a tragedy? They'll say don't do anything for like a year or 2 years or a year or 6 months or what have you. Have you ever heard of that before?
Sure have.
So that's basically why we have this, because it covers like a year or what have you to figure stuff out. And actually, my mom, when I was 2 years old, she was a young mom, and her sister actually took her own life. And my mom, I told her about the critical period concept and how this all works, and she said, "Really? They said a year?" And I said, "Yeah." She goes, "I couldn't even hold a job down for 2 years." Like, she was such a mess. So, in her opinion, the critical period should be 2 years. You know, from her experience. So at that point, guys, I actually now we've painted enough of a picture to show plans, but I like to take it one level deeper. And I actually use a story that me and Michael Mascola got when we went out on appointments together when he came down to Fort Myers. And I had a law professor, and I met with him, and he had so many things already in place. It was so impressive. He had life insurance, and he had everything all ready to go. But he thought he would die before his wife. Okay, he was sure of it. But he didn't just want to have just 1 year of the mortgage payments for her. He actually wanted to have every bill that they had all bundled together, so when he died, she could have a year to figure stuff out before having to worry about all their assets, like the life insurance, the house, annuities, whatever, and then she could make some decisions. So that was the pool guy, the lawn guy, the I don't know, Amazon.com, like every bill they had, we actually bundled it together and gave her 1 year to figure stuff out.
It's nice.
And I'm telling you guys, that little add-on, that story. I'm sorry, I'm putting this pizza for my kids because they're like starving. This is multitasking with symmetry financial group. Hold on a second.
That's the story of the professional American life now. Is the multitasking.
So what kind of things am I planting a seed for with that story, or preventatively preventing them from saying later? There's a lot of meat in that story. I didn't quite realize how good it was until I started meeting with people and sharing it.
Well, if they got insurance already, there's no reason they can't have more insurance that's immediately available to give them coverage and give them time to think about things. So they can't tell you they already have insurance.
Yep.
Time is of the essence.
Well, another thing is during that time, if somebody passes away, the last thing they want to do is have to make a decision. Mm-hmm. And this helps them buy time about making any decisions, compared to financial decisions. They don't have to worry. So I think that's one of the biggest things is people like the idea that they aren't under pressure to make decisions.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
And also, and Marv, what else? Was there anything that stood out to you separate from what was mentioned by these two?
For me,
Yeah.
I I like, I mean, like you said, the bundling. That's pretty creative, because it is not only just mortgage protection, but it's going through like a life insurance type product. So you can add on, um, whatever is customizable. Add on whatever the
Yes,
client needs.
absolutely. Guys, as soon as I opened up their mind, it doesn't just need to be their mortgage. Now this is a customizable plan that they're going to create for their family.
Yep.
And it's like I'm telling you, they'll go, "Well, how much does it cost to include all my bills?" And I said, "Well, it depends what you want to include." And now I hand them back that same list from before and a pen, and I say, "You highlight what you want to include, and I'll tell you how much it will be." Do you want to do all the bills? That's going to be the most, just because I'm covering everything. But if not, pick what you guys think would be important to not have to worry about. If your child's taking the home over and they need to sell the home, do you want to include the HOA fees and the electric bill and the phone bill? Like, what do you want to have in there so they don't have to come out of pocket for anything? Don't worry about it. And I'm telling you that now the this is something that they created for their family. This is something they just made. It's not just a life insurance policy. This is a custom fit solution to their family not having to worry about stuff. So, like, no, do you think someone's going to come behind me and be able to replace that? It's going to be pretty tough.
Not likely.
Yeah, it's gonna be. I was gonna say it's gonna be pretty tough for them to be able to dig as deep as you and kind of break things down. No one's doing it for like Symmetry and we are.
And even on top of that, and I'm going to get real advanced here for a minute, but I'm going to show them now. Okay, so Marvin, before you show any prices, I'm going to say, do you think it would help you to have 1 year of mortgage payments or 2 years? Would that be helpful? And I already know that he likes that because he already told me that it would be great if he has the a couple years to figure stuff out. So let's pretend like that's where I know he's at budget wise based on what we talked about. Before I show any prices, I need to get a commitment that he even wants to, like, thinks it's a good idea. But
Mhm.
I got to tie him down. So do you think that would help to have 1 or 2 years to figure stuff out?
Yeah, that'd be great. At the very least.
So Marvin, and this is it, guys. So right now I've got my tie down. I know what's important to Marvin. I know that I can probably get him covered based on what we've looked at before. But if anything has changed earlier with any of the health stuff, and I'm talking about at the start when you went over that, this is the exact moment I want you guys to call for help. Okay? Not any earlier, because now Marvin, how interested is he in this coverage?
He's ready to go.
He is, and now I'm going above and beyond saying, listen, before I show you a price, Marvin, I know some things were a little different from what we talked about. I just want to make sure that I'm showing you the one we have the best shot at. So I'm just going to place a call to one of my managerial field underwriters and just double check real quick. And then I'll just use my string, and you guys will all have one. I think you all do already. I think maybe Bruce, I need to set yours up, but you just put 911, and then someone will be on the phone with you in the next few seconds. So you do that. We get on the phone with you, and you just make sure that before you show a price, that it's one that we are very sure that they have a good shot at. Any questions on that?
Nope, sounds good.
Nope.
That's so when I get a 911 call from my people that I've trained, I know that you're probably right here. And if for some reason earlier on there's no why and you're sitting there spinning wheels, you might call there, because I don't ever want you guys to leave the home without giving us a chance to help you without an app. So if you're not getting a why, maybe text and say 911, there's no why. I don't think this is, important to them. And we could help you there, but 9 times out of 10, it's going to be right here or after you've showed prices and now they told you they want to think about it. Okay. So at this point, you're just going to take, as soon as you get the approval, you're going to go ahead and you're going to jump into now showing them the plans. So it says call 911 if anything has changed. So right before you go ahead and put down the payments, this is the most important rebuttal. And I hope you guys were on the call that John Ziller and I did on Tuesday. If not, it's on GroupMe. Listen to the recording. We talked about, actually, I'll send it out. Did you guys listen to it, or do you need me to send it to you from Tuesday?
I did listen to it, but I'm happy to have it archived so we can listen to it.
I'm going to start.
Yeah, I'd like you to send it to me, right?
Yeah, I'm going to start sending it out after onboarding, because we talk about the think about it rebuttal, and we also talked about how to 911 properly. So I think that would be a great thing right after onboarding to listen to again, because those.
Yep, sure would.
Hi. He's pretending he's a Power Ranger and making noises. And you're a very good Power Ranger.
No, I wasn't.
I don't know if you could hear him, but he was being quite loud.
Yep.
He thought you were doing a really good job at being a Power Ranger. It's okay, man. It's all right. He's trying to be a ninja, not a Power Ranger, you guys. Got it. Okay. Oh boy. Okay. So I think about it. This objection right here, I know we're covering a lot of meat and I'm giving you guys the tools to not close couple, like 1 out of 2. I'm giving you the tools to close almost everyone by mastering the script here. So if you only do part of it, you'll do fine. But there's one part I want you guys to really take serious to memorize quick, and it's this rebuttal right here. Because the reason I went 0 for 10 and 0 for whatever was because I didn't have this memorized and I didn't know it existed. So I mentioned it on the call the other day, but how about Bruce just read off the script here on screen? Because this is exactly how you want to do it. Just have it to memory so that you're saying it while you're looking at him and not kind of worrying about what you're saying. But
okay, I'm going to start by showing you the comprehensive coverage. I'm not doing this to talk you into spending more money than you need to, but I don't want to assume that you don't want the very best coverage available for you and your family. If what I show you is more than you want to spend, please let me know. Sometimes homeowners will beat around the bush and say things like, I need to think about it, or sleep on it, or pray about it. And I've been doing this a long time, enough to know what that means. It means that the price isn't right. So if what I'm showing you doesn't fit the budget, please just tell me. This is just the first option, and we will definitely find something to fit your budget.
Good. So that is it. Sometimes I forgot to say that and actually put numbers on the table. Still say it, because if you don't, they're going to tell you they need to think about it. And even if you do say this, they may tell you they need to think about it anyways. And that's when I go into the John Ziller rebuttal that we talked about on the call. And I'm going to actually put it in my script because I do use it very religiously. But I'll put the numbers on the table. So now that I've preventatively got them to understand that you better not say that you need to think about it. Now I'll put the numbers down and I'll say, guys, listen, and write this down if you can in your notes. There's 4 things that could happen. The first thing is that they could say that your issue has applied for, which is my goal. Okay. Number 2, they could say that you're actually a little bit riskier than we thought and the price is going to be a little higher. They could say you're better than we thought. The price actually just went down, or they could turn around and decline us. Okay. If that happens, I'll be back out here anyways. And again, if they don't do issue as applied for, I'll be back out here again anyways. So really my goal is to find something that you like, that's affordable, that I think we have a good shot at. And that just totally lets them relax to know, like, I want them to know that if we apply and they say, yes, we're good. But outside of that, we'll be here together again anyways. And at this point, it's just about finding a plan that makes sense, that's in budget for them. If they do say they need to think about it, again, there's 2 reasons why. Does anyone remember what they are? If they have to
price is one.
Price, and what's the second?
Not a strong enough why.
Yeah, that's it. So if you're dialing the price back and they're like, no, then it's because the why wasn't here. Circle back to it. And if you can't figure it out, call us. Well, maybe you're saying the right things. They just need to hear it from another person. It happens all the time. So just to kind of recap for you guys, if you're looking at somebody who is healthy and they're under 60, 65-ish, This is going to be done on a term life insurance policy. Okay, the whole mortgage or half of it. If the client has got a lot of problems going on, or they're probably if they're under 60, they can get their money back at the end. If they're healthy, they could, let's say they're 50 years old or 55 years old, they can do a 20 or 30-year term. So at 75, they didn't die on us, they get all their money back. After 60, we can't offer that anymore. So you guys will see all this inside the virtual mentor. But the key is just kind of knowing the age range. If they're, over 65, you can look at it. But again, if it's outside of which percentage, do we want to try to find a plan? Remember the number? We want what percentage of their mortgage payment for the monthly amount to be around for their policy?
10%.
So if you find that this is like, $500, now we're going to be dialing it down, right? This is going to be done on a whole life policy, this third option. I love it because in a term, the problem is that they're betting that these people are going to outlive the policy. That's why it's cheaper for a bigger amount. If this client lives to 76 years old, they have no life insurance. If I get them in on a whole life policy, they've got a plan till they're 110 years old, and it accumulates cash value, and most of the time has some kind of benefit. So if they get like critically ill or terminally ill, then they can actually access their death benefit kind of as a security net. So I sell, like, I don't even show the third option to young people because the way that we explain it in here, they're going to want it. Hey, there's like a hidden secret savings account. Like, let's say you get in a bind and you need to borrow like $1,000 from your life insurance policy. You're going to have cash value you can borrow from. The other policies don't have any of that. You live it to the end, maybe you'll get your money back. We can make it sound very unglamorous if we want to, but at the end of the day, if someone's like closer to 70, I can do a term up to 75 if they're real healthy, but it's only going to last till they're 85 years old. This whole life is going to last until they're no longer alive. So I'm just such an advocate if we're kind of teeter-tottering to give someone something that they can guarantee is going to pay out for their family. So I know, does anyone have questions on that? I know that it's very vague and there's a lot of variables on why we'd end up in one product or the other, but does the whole kind of like concept make sense, I guess?
Yeah, it does.
Okay. So, how about you? You're good?
Yep.
Bruce, cool. Okay, so really what happens, and again, we can get into all this fancy footwork, but I've got blonde hair. I like to do it the simplest way possible. Really, the policies that we're looking to do, just really don't get all tied up in all the nitty gritty, because we want to make sure if the family dies or someone dies that the family can stay in the home. There's all these fancy riders we can include, but really put that to the side right at the start. Make sure that our objective is to make sure if someone dies tomorrow, they're not going to lose their house, right? So that's either done on a term that has an ending date or a whole life policy that will never expire. That's the easiest way to explain it. Okay. So let me see here. So, what else? I typically, when I'm explaining this one, I'll say this one goes till you're 110, which is really cool because one side up here has your death benefit and the other side down here, it accumulates like cash value, almost like an equity in your home. So like, I wouldn't say go and spend this cash, but the thing is, it's almost like a secret savings account that you can access in an emergency or what have you. Also, let's pretend that the mortgage is $100,000, okay? And Bruce really just wants 1 year for his family to be able to sell the home if something happens to him. So I'd say, hey, 1 year, how much is the 1 year? Let's pretend it's $12,000, okay? I'm going to say, Bruce, I've got one policy that would be $100 a month for 1 year of mortgage payments. And if I'm going to add in the accidental death policy that we talked about later, how much would be left on that accidental death policy to cover the rest of his mortgage? Anyone? The mortgage is 100. We're going to give him a policy for 12,000.
88.
Yep. So I don't need to write this 88,000 out. I just want you guys to understand. I just say the rest of the mortgage. So listen, Bruce, just for the 1 year of mortgage payments is $100. This policy over here is an add-on. If you want to do A plus policy B, it's going to be $110 a month for both of them. So in your scenario, does it make sense to go with the 1 year of mortgage payments by itself for $100 a month? Or do you want to go with the A
No.
plus B for $110 a month?
A plus B.
And that's how I write 2 apps in a home.
So go through that again, please.
Marv. Okay, I'll go through.
Yes.
So, okay, so policy 1 is 1 year of mortgage payments, right? Which
Okay.
$1,000 once $100. Whatever's left on the mortgage, if this is $200,000, then now this is going to be $188,000 that's left on the accidental policy. Okay.
But if I'm paying on it, for the next 10 years, and then number could go down, and
yeah, but right now, whatever I'm approved for, it's going to be at that 200 mark. So even if they pay it down, it's still 200. So in this scenario, maybe this now goes up to $20. So Dom, would you rather have 1 year of mortgage payments for $100 a month, or would you want to have both that plus the whole mortgage is paid off if you died by accident?
The latter.
So again, it's 1 year no matter what. If you have a heart attack, stroke, cancer, whatever, you get 1 year, which you already said that you like. Or for, 120 for both, do you want to have the whole mortgage paid off? And I don't show them these figures. This is written on my notepad. I'm just saying the whole mortgage. The whole $200,000 is paid off. Keep it very simple. Boom. Does that make sense?
Yes.
yes.
So anytime you're not going with the full payout, always put the balance on that accidental death policy. Bundle it together and show it as 2 separate entities, but put the price together. So if I'm going to go ahead and do a partial payout, and in budget I could only do, let's say, 40,000 of his 100, and this is going to be $100 a month. Okay, you follow me? $100 a month based on my research. I'm going to put $60,000 on the accidental death policy, and maybe this is $105 a month for both. I wish I could draw neater. So I just want to make sure that with both policies together, the whole mortgage is paid off if someone gets in an accident and passes away.
And it's still in budget.
And it's in budget. You know what I find, Marvin, is a lot of times my very younger clients, maybe doing the whole mortgage where they get their money back at the end is going to just be a little bit too much. But if I do half the mortgage where they get their money back is in budget, now I add another $10, now they can get the whole thing as well paid off if they die by accident. I do this one all day long for my young people. Because most families live on a double income anyway, so if you pay the mortgage halfway, then that helps. Plus they get their money back. It's like they're saving, $100 a month or whatever into a savings account they're going to get back in 20 years. Plus their family's protected. Does that make sense? I'm going into some advanced stuff here, but I think you guys can handle it. So
yeah, no, that makes sense. Appreciate that.
If your heads are spinning,
You're saying the accidental death is under 65, right?
Under 60. Yeah. No, sorry.
Under 60.
Death is under age 70, Marv, and the return of premium is
age
60.
70.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they got to be healthy. They can't have like a heart attack last year or anything. It's got to be very healthy, not too many medications. You guys.
Diabetes.
Diabetes isn't a big deal as long as it's not insulin. And if they were diagnosed before 35, that could be a problem. But besides that, we can help them in most cases.
Gotcha.
As long as they're not super overweight, that could throw it off. But besides that, it's not with normal medical exam, that's a problem. Not with what we're doing. You guys, a training audio. Let me know when you're ready for it. But I did a breakout session at conference on how to bundle the accidental death policy in with the exactly what we just talked about. So when you want to look at this again, I'll send that to you. I did it a couple weeks ago on GoToMeeting, and
I'll send that now, would you, please, to Don.
Okay, I'll send it to you guys, and then I'll send you what was the other one that I wanted to send you? The call from Tuesday. Let me make another list.
Tuesday.
So accidental, I call it double your application volume.
Hey,
Tuesday.
So I'm gonna,
Miranda,
Yeah.
on
Go ahead.
all these go to meeting sessions, it says on there that a session's being recorded. Can we go back and listen to these? Is it on GoToMeeting or is it on the SFG site?
I only recorded this because Katrina couldn't make it. I do
Okay.
honestly do. I mean, Bruce, I do honestly like 5 or 6 of these sometimes a day. So I don't record them all.
Okay.
If you guys, if you know, if someone asks me to, I can try to remember. But what is probably most helpful, I do onboarding like every week. So if there's ever a class,
Right.
I want to redo this class, I'll just say, hey, I'm doing session 2 tonight. Jump on. That's probably the easiest way, and then you can interact with us and ask questions and be a part of it. But I do have versions of it recorded, but it's a lot. It's a big file.
Is there a library of calls and stuff on the SFG site? Where you can go into all different kinds of categories and areas and people.
There's you could probably end up in a mental hospital trying to go through all that stuff. But so yeah, there's
Okay. Well, I just meant so you could pick and choose and go through some of them if you wanted to.
You could, but what I'll recommend to you, because I've been through all that stuff for the last 2 years, and
Mm-hmm.
and I would rather there's 3 things that I will tell you that is your best investment of time to focus on as a new person, and you might not like my answer, but it's master the phone script, master the phone objections, and master this in-home presentation. Like watch that video that I sent and memorize this script. Because
Right, and you emphasized that yesterday, so I understand that. That's true.
all these the fluff and everything, not all of this is set up to intentionally make you win tomorrow. Like it's all good to learn as you go, but if you can get in front of people and you can hit on these points we talked about, you're going to have the skill set to sign up most of your people, and then you have us to help you with the carriers and who to go with. Like that's all why we're there. Besides that, I just need you to have your apps printed, like 10 of the most popular ones. You're good to go. And you're gonna have a panic attack because I did, but I promise you, if you do these 3 things and you call when you're there, for sure, let us help you, and you have your kit of apps, then you're good to go for sure.
So which are the apps that you have to have, or the 10 most used apps?
After tonight, because I try to feed you guys stuff. I don't want to put in your mouth
Okay.
on full blast. I try to do it in like baby steps, not baby steps, but every day. Okay, this is what we're doing. Then tomorrow and whatever. So as soon as we're done,
Okay.
she'll send you an email, and I have her to include the apps to print off. And just so you,
Perfect.
you're going to go to the Symmetry website, and under carriers, like under here,
Mm-hmm.
Mutual of Omaha. If you scroll down, it'll say like, hold on, they'll say applications and products, and you just click the link, and then that will iPipeline, that'll send you to where to print them. American App.
Okay.
You just go through that, have those printed, and then get set up with Virtual Mentor if you haven't already. And then I'll get those other 2 training audios sent over. So I just go through that and master this, and you guys, you'll be fine. And you'll probably feel like you're not, but I promise you are if you take that serious.
Okay.
Cool. What other? I know, Bruce. You had some other questions. What other kind of technical setup questions?
Well, like 911. How do you do 911 on your phone? What do I actually call?
Are you
or text?
Do you have the Group Me app?
Am I what?
Are you on? Do you have Group Me app downloaded on your phone?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to set you up with one right now. And right now, I'm just going to put a couple of us on there. And as soon as you have you booked some appointments yet?
No, I have a bunch to start calling tomorrow, though.
So as soon as, just let us know on Group Me once you have your appointments. And as soon as you've got any questions about making dials or the phone calls, I'll put Ginger on here, me, Ryan, like I'll put a few of us on here just so you've got help while you're making your phone calls. But after you have an appointment scheduled, let me know, and I'm going to add about 10 or 15 managers on your string. So when you hit your appointment, you've got help from you have like live help from a ton of people that are very capable. So
Okay, great, great.
so I'm gonna put that. I'll start that up, and then and yeah, so that's the next step after this, and then I would just watch those, listen to those two, the one from Tuesday, and then I'll send out how to double your application volume audio as well. So after you're done this, you put the prices on the sheet. As soon as the client starts motioning towards one, just start filling the app out. Okay. I waited for them to like tell me they loved the policy I was showing them. Like I put the prices down and I would say, all right, so this one's this amount, this one's this. And they go, oh, that one looks really good. And I go, okay, so you want to do that one? Or do you want to do this one? Or do you want to do that one? And I was like, I talked my way out of so many sales by doing that. So as soon as they motion towards one, just fill the app out. Remember at the start, you told them that I'm going to do an app today, right? So just pull it out and start writing on it. Okay. So that's it. After that, most products that you do right, you're going to have a phone interview. So before, just finish the application, and then you're going to have to call into a phone number that should generally be on the application, and they'll ask the same health questions that we just asked them on the app. But then typically it gets approved within a couple days after that. Sound good? You guys have any other questions for me?
Sounds good. I did send you, this is Don, I did send you my virtual mentor request, so you should see that for approval.
Sounds good. I will do that. So,
I don't know if I've sent mine to you or not.
Okay, I'll check in a minute. So guys, you don't need a live check. Okay, just a void check is fine. They'll do auto draft for the first payment, and then continually just an auto draft. Just make sure that you leave. There's a conditional receipt inside the policy. You leave that with them, and typically I try to write down what we did. So if it's 1 year of mortgage payments, I'll write that down. If it's half the mortgage, I just want to make sure that when I leave and tomorrow when they wake up, they look at a sheet of paper and they understand what happened. And John Ziller, he actually has them write down 3 reasons why they did the coverage on that sheet of paper. So if they call you to think about canceling, it's written right on there in their handwriting of why they did the coverage. And he'll be like, listen, sometimes that people call and check on me, and I want to make sure if that happens that you guys have your reasons out so that you can make, we're all on the same page here. Can you just write down the top 3 reasons why you guys wanted to do this today? And he puts his business card right there. So if they go to call him to cancel, they're now looking at what they did and why they did it in their own handwriting.
Do you find you've had much buyer's remorse in this industry?
If we call it bloody knees booking when we're begging for an appointment for a sale. So if I'm desperate, people will cancel because I would be desperate. But no, normally not. Like if I was very persuasive in the home, sometimes I get a call the next day and they'd say, Miranda, I don't want to do it. But if it got put in force, and that's going to take a week or 2 or whatever. Rarely, like maybe something changed in their finances, or something. But the why is so strong that I thought in my last business that was like a big problem, like people canceling. But once I wrote about 40 apps a month ish, 35 to 40, and just now I might have 1 cancellation come in from a policy I wrote last year or something. They can't afford it or whatever. Like normally I find it happens at the front end, not later.
Then how about the 5 R's? When are we working those in?
I am not an expert at the 5 R's. I'm really not. So you can work those in wherever you want. You can work them in right at the end, rugrats, like referrals. I would rather, I don't know, I never got good at it. I don't have a background in sales. I don't have a background in marketing like that. Like it's just, I never got good at it, Don. So maybe you can let me know how it goes.
Well, we've got a lot of other stuff. We got a lot of other stuff to learn and practice here first. But
there's so many leads that we have access to that I wasn't really worried about. How do I get you back here? Like I already just had too many that I could barely get through as it is. So I was very blessed with Symmetry that I didn't have to really get desperate on trying to meet with people more.
Yeah, I like that too.
But it's a great thing to do, and I would never deter you from not, doing it. I'm not the expert in it. I'm not going to pretend to be. So,
Okay.
all right, cool. Any questions, guys? Especially I know Bruce. He's a very articulate man with a ton of questions. Did this answer most of your questions that you had for me?
It did. Thank you.
What was most impactful, do you think, that kind of helped you kind of connect the dots on all the things that you were thinking?
They were just steps that I hadn't heard and didn't have confidence in, and now I've got more confidence about what the steps are. So
good. Well, thank you for coming on, and I thought it would be helpful. I'm glad it sounds like that it was there for you. You've been in the industry for a long time, so anything we can add that's going to help you win quick, that's the whole point, right? So awesome. Yep. Marv, what about you? What was something that was a highlight tonight for you? We lost.
Marv had to go.
All of a sudden, he's gone. He's like, I don't need to answer this time. She's not going to pick on me first. I'm off the hook.
Hey, I'll go ahead and go. Marv's coming back. So I'll kind of echo what Bruce was saying. It's just, nice to tie all the steps together, and it just helps with that confidence and how things are going to flow, and hearing everybody's story, and again, the thing where to put your inflection and the things to focus on, and then, the paragraphs that, are very important for us to memorize and be able to say to keep the objections to a minimum when we get down to the end.
Cool. I appreciate that. And anything that you guys see here that's highlighted in yellow, this was kind of like just a script that I did each time. And even this was a slideshow from a presentation that I made on the in-home. So these were scripts as well, but I tried to just make it as easy as I could for, hey, this is what I would, when you really to the point where you're being really consistent with all this, just focus on those points. It looks like a lot just because there's one slide, but really you hit on those key points and you'll do very well with this. So it all comes down to caring. And if you really care about making sure these people are okay if something bad happens, that's it. That's the in-home presentation. So this is just all going to get you to that next level for
sure. Cool.
Well, that was the other reason I was interested in the apps and things like that. I want to go over them and understand them, and not feel like the first time I'm going to pull out that app, I don't even know where to start. So I want to feel comfortable, like, when I sit there in that at that dinner table or that kitchen table, that it seems like I've gone through these apps 100 times. So that's
what I would recommend, Bruce, is once you've had the 10 core ones printed, just put a little sticky note everywhere that you need a signature from them. Okay.
Good idea. Yeah.
That's it. And the thing is, because I've never seen anyone do a perfect application. I still probably don't do them most of the time, but just make sure you don't miss a signature. Do the best you can, and then anything that we need outside of that, we can do by a phone call. And sometimes, and I don't want to stress you out, but you may not even write one of those apps. We may send you one because this person you find out has some rare condition that we've never heard of, and we end up writing them with a elusive carrier we've never even seen before. And you just got to get comfortable with being uncomfortable a little bit. And that gives me anxiety because I'm such a planner. But, just do the little things that are going to help you win the quickest, and the rest will come the more you meet with people. And if you're full-time and you meet with 10 to 15 people a week, in 60 days, you're going to feel like an expert compared to how you are now. I promise you. You'll be teaching me things about the carrier. Yeah.
I doubt that.
No,
But I agree. Action cures fear, and the more you do, the easier it gets.
Ask Ginger, ask any of these guys that have been around longer than 60. They are now teaching me things about the carriers, and even more now because I don't run appointments. They'll be like, "Hey, did this happen?" I'm like, "No, I didn't." Cool. Can you talk about that? Like, it's really cool how fast. I say that this business runs in like 3 to 6 months increments. Like, in 3 months, a year will feel like it's went by. And in 6 months, it feels like 2 years have gone by because of how fast you can grow and how fast you learn stuff. But it feels like each day is a week, and each week is a month. So I'm just going to warn you, as you're learning, just be easy on yourself and realize that you are new at this. And how long did it take you to become an expert at what you did before?
It took a while. You're always learning. So
If it took a while, don't expect to be an expert in a week or two at this. If it took 2 years, I was reading a book this morning that said that if you do everything for an hour, you spend 1 hour a day, in 5 years you'll be an expert. That's a long time. I was like, what in the world? Like, that's a long time. I want to be expert tomorrow. Show me that plan?
Yeah, that's true.
So, anyways, but you guys, I'm really excited for you. You guys are a great group. We covered a lot of advanced stuff. I'm not joking. If most of the time I'll dial it back and just cover the things I know that we can. But you guys, I could tell we're ready to really hit the ground running. And it doesn't mean it's not going to be perfect the whole time, but you guys are going to do well if you put the activity in, no doubt. So don't be shy. I should be hearing from you guys at least 5. How many times? Let me ask you. If you're full time, how many times should we hear from you? Once you're
10 a day.
5, at least 10. Yep.
10 times a day?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
That's why I'm here.
Will do.
When you're dialing, when you have a question, when you're not sure about something, absolutely. Because guess what? You're only going to do it for a little bit, and then that's why I said in 60 days, you're going to feel like an expert because you're going to call everyone so much. We're going to make sure of it.
Okay.
Cool. Marv, are you?
Yeah, I'm off of mute, and my phone was kind of acting up a little bit, so I couldn't unmute myself. But for me, you guys kind of give me more feedback on my why. Something for me to engage with, my clients a little bit more with, instead of just telling a story. That's going to be impactful for me going forward. So I appreciate that. Awesome.
Good job, man. And just from how you were compared to the last time we went through this, Marvin, you've come like light years. You sounded good before. You sound way better now. Just keep working on it, and you're going to do really, really good. So proud of all of you guys. And okay, so this onboarding class, we're not done talking with each other, okay? Call me over the weekend, text me, let me know how your phone calls are going. Let me know if you have any questions printing your applications off. Let's make sure that by Sunday that we've got all that done and we've got some appointments for next week. And don't be shy, okay? Your upline's going to with you and make sure that we've got a good outline and we're on the same page with keeping the momentum train going. All right, guys.
Okay.
Nope.
Nothing
That's perfect. Thank you.
Good night.
All right. Have a great weekend. Good luck, guys.
Okay,
Thank you.